When I came back from deployment, the only person that I related to was a family member who had previously been incarcerated. When you're deployed or when you're in jail, you don't exist. And then when you come back, you're thrust into this environment that didn't wait for you. I've always been like the music person in my family. When I got back, me, my wife, and our best friend were driving in a car. They played a song and they knew the song. They were singing word for word, right? I had never heard it. And I had a panic attack in the back seat. Hi, my name is Dion Dawson, and my unpopular decision is betting that the most powerful way to solve a broken system isn't to ask for permission, it's to build a better infrastructure. External validation be damned.
If you've ever felt like the world kept moving while you were left behind, this episode is for you. Dion Dawson left the Navy after 6 years, knowing on day 2 it was never for him. He came back to Chicago with no plan and no career, despite being one of the highest-ranking journalists in all the branches. He faced stints of homelessness and ended up working overnight shifts at an Amazon warehouse. Up until that point, he says life had always been painted for him. This is the story of what happened when he finally decided for himself. In 2020, he posted a GoFundMe to feed 100 people for Juneteenth. Dion's Chicago dream has now distributed almost 8 million pounds of fresh produce to those in need, and he did it his way, putting dignity and humanity at the forefront. His journey is now featured in the Obama Presidential Center. I am Jameelah Calhoun, and this is Unpopular Decisions, your permission slip to go against the grain, even when the people you love expect you to stay in line. Before we get into it, if you're in the middle of figuring out what your next chapter looks like, I'm hosting my first ever virtual event, Pivots Live, Positioning Your Next Chapter. Details and registration are in the show notes, and I would love to see you there. Let's get into it. Dion, I'm so excited that you've joined us here on Unpopular Decisions. Guys, we have just a titan of the Chicago area on the show with us. So very, very excited to have you on.
I appreciate that. I'm excited to be here. I receive Titan, even though sometimes it makes me squirm, but also I'll take it. I'll take it from your mouth to God's ears. I'll take it.
I love it. I love it. Well, we understand the need to be humble, but also
Yeah.
to recognize those who are really doing great things in our community. So I really appreciate you. But maybe before we go too deep in, I would love to have you share your unpopular decision with our audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hi, my name is Dion Dawson, and my unpopular decision is betting that the most powerful way to solve a broken system isn't to ask for permission, it's to build a better infrastructure. External validation be damned.
Well, amen, especially to that last part. And so much of like what we're doing here is deconstructing the meaning of external validation in our lives. It makes sense to some extent. We are humans, we are social beings, but at some point we all got to grow up and realize we got to live our own life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, we have to, right?
Exactly. But it's interesting because for those who don't know, actually, Dion is a service member, a former member of the Navy, I
That's
believe.
correct. That's correct.
So thank you for your service.
Appreciate it.
Being in the military is seen as a very, prominent and very well regarded part of society, and rightfully so. So, I think for some people, going into the military can mean kind of getting access to maybe being externally validated in certain ways
Absolutely.
and having a path to success that maybe doesn't seem as possible depending on where you're from across the country. What did being a service member in the military mean to you? And was it always a path that you saw for yourself?
Well, I think it wasn't really a path I saw for myself. If anything, I didn't see any path when I was younger. You know what I mean? When you're a younger, especially Black male in an urban area, you know what I mean? Like without having the capital behind you, without having the pick of the litter, you don't really think about path, you think about survival. So, this is something that I did that I didn't really even understand how heavy it was, the good and the bad and the indifferent. And what it meant to me was, I hear a lot of people talk about the tangible benefit of joining the military and what you get out of it and all of these things. But if anything, it was the opposite for me. I'm not saying that they're hasn't been a tangible benefit or value add. But for me, it really gave me perspective. And, I tell a lot of people I love being able to learn how to say things in a way that reflect how I feel. When I can find that term or that slogan or that way of speaking, it really just it's like a light bulb goes off. And so, at a lot of veterans, we're battling with suicide rates and having to deal with that in mental health. And I tell people, I said, what I learned was the military taught me two things simultaneously. And what it ultimately meant for me with that perspective was it taught me how big the world is and how small I am. And as I held that, I came back to Chicago and I had to balance out what that really meant, understanding and seeing the world, but also knowing how big the world is. And so, the military really taught me perspective and it really allowed me, even with, you say being a Titan, also not getting ahead of my skis and understanding that if impact is important for me, then understanding that there's a big world out there and the impact can always be greater.
Yeah, no, I love that framing. I think for one, of course, the fact that you are, seeing the world from a really different lens than a lot of people do. Like a lot of people, they travel and it's like, oh, yeah, I'd love to travel, but you're only seeing one particular version of life in some of these countries. But when you're in the military, you're really seeing it from a whole other lens of, challenges
Yep.
or poverty and many, many other aspects. You also mentioned a very sad fact that a lot of veterans do face mental health challenges and in particular when transitioning back to civilian life. I'm curious for you, what did you expect for your transition back to civilian life? Had you always planned to kind of end your military tour at the time that you did? And what was kind of on your mind when you thought about, okay, I'm coming back home?
I'll tell you, there wasn't a thought around what life looked like after, but I knew it wasn't for me though. You know what I mean? And I'm thankful. And I want, everyone to understand that I did not have this thing figured out. I did not believe that I could do all of these great things. But what I do know is that I knew and I know when something is not for me. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
so what I appreciate the most and what a lot of, veteran and active duty and past service members or service member adjacent, I appreciate that I made it to that decision. I made it to the decision to enter in. And when it was time to decide whether or not I would continue, I didn't. And I appreciate the fact that I made it to that moment. It was one of the most difficult things that I've done. But I'm also thankful that I was able to walk away when I decided to walk away. And you don't always get to decide that. And so, that's something that, as I look back, even though I had no plan, you know what I mean? And also a lot of service members, especially service members of color, we come back to a lot of the systems and a lot of the gaps in community and employment that were there before we left. And so, I tell people a lot that when I left the armed forces, I was one of the highest rated journalists in all the branches. And yet when I came back, I didn't get any opportunities to continue writing. You know what I mean? Not saying that it was all against me because God knows I could have been better. You know what I mean? But I just think that it was this stark reality that you're faced with that like you still have to come back and reintegrate into a world that now honestly is even harder to fit into. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Here I am as a man, and here I am as a black man, and here I am as a black man from, very complicated area in Chicago. And then also you add in a veteran and seeing different things and being around the world and having to have different types of struggles and triumphs and pains. And I think it just sets you up to feel like a fish out of water.
Wow. Yeah, there's so many threads that I want to pull on. I think one of this idea of knowing when it's time, knowing when something's not the right fit for you. I recently had someone ask me this question even about career changes. They're like, "Oh, you've pivoted your career so many times. Like how do you know when it was time?" For one, I'd be curious for you to add maybe a little bit more context for listeners around what your military career was. You mentioned being a journalist.
Yes,
So I'm
yes.
sure in their minds, they may be thinking a different type of experience in the military. I mean, you had a really incredible journey in journalism, writing, speech writing, etc. So I'd love for you to add some context there. And then we'll maybe touch on some of those signals that you had for the fact that it was time to go.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I was a mass communication specialist. I didn't know what that really all entailed when I enlisted. I literally went to the recruiter's office and said, "Hey, I'll join. I just have to talk." And they said, "Well, sounds like a mass communication specialist." I really fell in love with the journalism side because everybody loves to be the photographer in the Navy. They want to get that jet shot and all of those things. And I hated it. I didn't want to take photos of stuff I didn't want to take photos of. So you could tell
Mm.
when I loved it. The photo was composed, it was beautiful. And then when it was something I didn't, I was like, this is just not it. But journalism, I really flocked to how difficult it was, how many people didn't want to do it in our rate. And as a result, I was able to get pretty good at it. And it's been something that's really anchored my life and how I write and present myself. You know what I mean? I was able to have something that honestly really confirmed who I thought I was, which was, I love
Hmm.
people, I love interacting, I love writing, I love communicating. And ultimately, it became the thing that allowed me, the market moved in my favor. And, communications became a thing that the world really needed. And journalism became the thing that anchored how I wrote press releases when I got out and, how I present myself on social media or how I write my speeches and my keynotes when I give them around the world. It was something that part of it, the actual job and rate, I loved it. And I'm so happy that I was lucky enough to, even though I had to make that hard decision to leave my family and my city, it was one of the things that I'm glad I was able to confirm about myself.
I love this idea of finding your path through kind of just following where your heart takes you, following what's most interesting to you. I love the idea that people could tell, oh, this is when you're actually into it. Like the
Yeah,
photo looks different
absolutely.
versus like, nah, I'm the same way. I can't fake it,
At
even at the
all.
office or anything. So it's tough. But, I think also you mentioned that you did know that there was a sense that this was not your forever path. What were some of those signals to you that this wasn't necessarily a place that you wanted to kind of make your career as a service member?
I knew day two.
Day
Day two.
two.
Day two.
Okay.
Day two. I said, oh, this ain't my thing. I
Okay.
think, and I
Okay.
think the good thing about it is that, which is also why I appreciate still going through with it. It's like,
Mhm.
like you have to, and it doesn't take a lot for your spidey senses to start tingling. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Right.
this is interesting.
Mhm.
But what I loved about it is that, through that discomfort, also understand number one, the commitment is a commitment, but also more importantly, it got me used to being uncomfortable. And what do I learn and how do you grow even in the midst of that discomfort? And so even though I knew early on it wasn't for me, to still be able to learn about myself and to find my passion and to find my way and to still be here. You know what I mean? Like beauty of it. It's never been easy for me. It's never been linear. It's always been, you have those people who are just their life is structured in a way where they learn, grow, mistake, learn, grow. Mine is learn, grow, drop, jump. But that was the beauty of it. It was me knowing early on that it wasn't for me. And I'm a free thinker in a way where it's like, okay, this military industrial complex thing is as I'm learning more is not something I can totally stand behind. And I have to serve it no matter what. When I've served nothing in my life, no matter what. You know what I mean? And so it just really challenges you.
Right. Right. So it sounds like because I could imagine for me it would just be like boot camp immediately.
Oh yeah.
No, like
Yes. That's
I
it.
that would be tough, right?
Day two.
Day two.
Exactly.
But it sounds like there were bigger things where you started to think about like your broader value system of,
Absolutely.
having your own path
Hmm.
and value system about, how you wanted to show up in the world. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that
No, of
that
course.
sounded like that
Absolutely.
was kind of coming through.
It was starting the foundation of my ethics and my belief system. Even now, like how do But what does it mean to be a US citizen? Knowing that we're showing up in ways that we can't stand behind personally in the world. And so it was just one of those things where, okay, I have no choice until I do. And then when I have a choice, what choice did I make? You know what I mean? Did I choose 20 years of stability over my value system? And is that something I could live with? And I
Right.
decided that I couldn't.
Wow. There's so many things that I can relate to. And I'm sure folks, even again, it may not be the military, folks in a job and you realize the ethics are not aligned or the values are not aligned. Sometimes it is literally day two and you're like, no, it's still early. I may not see everything. I don't have the full
Yep.
context.
Yep.
Let me get some more
Yeah,
information.
because you don't want to be a quitter either. You know what I mean? You're like, listen, Jameelah, I'll tell you this.
That
I am someone who, especially when you know what you know, which is, the whole phrase, believe the kids, right? Believe the children. And when you're so sure of something, society sometimes convinces you that you've made a snap judgment. But if I'm the same person with the same intellect, in the same history. And not all of my decisions are snap decisions. Then why can I
right.
not day two say this ain't right? You know what I
Mm,
mean? And so it's also challenging, like you said, not, like you, but also how people have responded to you when you've been yourself. And so it's this battle not only with you and your decision, but your environment in that decision as well.
my goodness. That's spot on. And I tell people sometimes, like, I'm like the quitting Sherpa. I'm like,
Yeah.
we see it as a bad thing. But honestly, like when you say no to something, that is
Yeah.
the truest test of your values.
Absolutely.
And it honestly is the most impressive gift you can give yourself is to take your time back, take your space back, your life back by saying no. I'm glad that you're also part of this movement, this mindset.
Absolutely. If you make the quitting Sherpa shirts, I'm gonna buy one. I promise you.
Yes. Okay. I like it. I like
I
it. The
got you.
merch is coming, y'all. Well, this may be a good time for us to play our game on the show. We always play Would You Rather. And I wanted to get, your takes, some food takes, some
Of course.
nonprofit takes,
Of
etc.
course. Let's do it.
So and I already know you're gonna be honest. So
Oh, listen, I have to. And look, first of all, I appreciate you for creating this game because very few podcasts I've been on, I get to like decide and discuss. So I appreciate just the idea. So I love it. I'm excited.
I love it. All right. All right. Well, we'll start with an easy. Well, I don't know if this is easy, but we're gonna
Okay.
see. Which one has the best food?
Okay.
The after church potluck or the Juneteenth cookout?
All right. Easy after church potluck.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And that's only first of all, it's you have to understand it's about the situation. Everybody after church is starving. Okay.
Mm,
Everyone's starving. Also,
yep.
understand this most of the food is actually good because you will be judged. These are people you
Right.
know. The Juneteenth celebration is all it's the community, but people can slip some potato salad with raisins in, and they won't claim it. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like, and so what I appreciate about the after church potluck is like, no, I know by the dishes who made this
right.
and you will be shunned. So after church potluck, absolutely, 100%.
Definitely go with that too, because
Yeah,
to your point, you are starving. But also, I mean, we know some of the church deaconesses, the aunties,
yeah.
they can
Oh
throw
yeah, the
down.
mother's
So
board, absolutely.
man, yeah. Now
I'm with you.
now I'm getting hungry.
I'm with you.
I love it. I love it. But to be clear, I'll still be outside for a
No, no, no.
Juneteenth
We definitely outside.
cookout.
Absolutely.
So very,
I'm
very
outside
excited.
and I'm gonna try it, but I won't be as upset because it's more of the community. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
In this generation, we can't cook as well as the past generations. Let's
The
just be real.
recipes are being lost.
Listen, they're
Okay.
not only being lost, but also we're lying. Like we're not being honest when something is nasty. When it's nasty, we gotta say it.
Crazy.
You know what I
That's
mean?
true.
Everybody
That's
don't get
true.
to cook on Thanksgiving. That is a rite of passage. You know what I mean? And this
Right.
generation, they want content. We're starving. Okay.
Right. And they want participation trophies
Yeah, like that.
for
It don't work
cooking.
like
It's like,
that. It don't work. No. What are you talking about? We were raised in the gauntlet. What are we talking about here?
right, right. Would you rather explain nonprofit funding and the reason for why you need donations to some billionaires who don't get it, or explain Juneteenth to a corporate sponsor who's like, I don't see color.
All right, I would rather explain nonprofit finance to a billionaire that doesn't get it
Okay.
because, and I'll say why. It's actually, it's not, really controversial when you break it down, or how I feel about it. With the nonprofit fundraising, the billionaires actually do get it. They only don't get it when they don't support it. You know what I mean? Because the way that philanthropy is anchored inside of capitalism, it actually has to be there to work. When we
Right.
talk about Juneteenth to someone who doesn't see color, I'm not doing it. I'll explain nonprofit finance and fundraising because I'm at that point where I don't have to walk in every room and explain why Juneteenth was important. You know what I mean? Because these are the same people and families and lineages where Ruby Bridges, just when she was a kid, they spat on her. You know what I mean? And so, like when I think about certain things, there's some things I will not involve myself in because they don't deserve that ban.
Right, right. No, I love it. Hey, preach the word there. But it's true. I mean, I think to your point about the billionaires, that conversation about nonprofit funding is about a business model, basically. Whereas, trying to validate a history and a people is a completely different conversation that's not worth, diving into. So, next one. Would you rather, and you shared before that you knew on day 2 that the military was not it for you. Would you rather go back to military service, or, as we'll get into, you also spent time working at
I
Amazon
I would
warehouses?
work
Which one?
1,000 Amazon shifts without a bath before I go back to the middle.
What?
Yes, yes, yes. I
Okay,
would.
that's a hot
Yes,
take.
yes. I would not because here's the thing. Autonomy is important, right? I don't think that the way that these billionaires have set up society to devalue human labor is even remotely appropriate. But what I loved about, as you said, like the quitting Sherpa is like the military, when it's not for you, you can't go anywhere. And if you go AWOL, your social is burned.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so the reason why I say that is because I understand before I think about my personal feelings, I think about my personal freedoms. And those two things are not alike. Especially, I still have friends, even these years later, who are in right now who deployed because of the Iran war. So this thing that may not be serious for people and they're laughing off, I have friends and family who's in harm's way right now because they cannot opt out. And so it's so easy for me to understand because that military part is such a big thing that such young people decide to do, which is why, serving, that's why, disrespecting those who decide to protect our freedoms and protect our country is just so crazy because it's sometimes you have 40-year-old men who are staunch supporters of whatever they want to be, but then they're talking down on an 18-year-old who decided to give up everything that they could be doing to protect those freedoms. So no, I would work in a warehouse blindfolded with marshmallows in my pocket before going back to the military. I'm
With a
telling you.
bear chasing you. No, I'm just
Literally,
kidding.
literally. Have you ever stuck your hand in a pocket and you don't know why it's sticky? That is the craziest thing. Like, why is my pocket wet? It's
Oh
like, no.
my word.
Yes.
Well, I think it's an amazing perspective that you're sharing with people. Like you said, like it is truly a sacrifice and a decision that people make at very young ages for many different reasons to go into the military. But like once you're in there, you are committed to something that's bigger than you. And that has a lot of trade-offs for people. So I think having grace for that, but also understanding the privilege to still be outside in civilian life and making our own choices in our own way. Let's maybe turn to that. So you did make that big decision to leave the military. And it sounds like that was also a tough call, just in terms of the timing, probably, and the implications. What was kind of part of your thought process when you got to that stage? And how many years was that in? Was
It
there
was
like a
6.
minimum that you had to?
Yes, it was 6.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
And it I don't know if I had so much of a thought process. It was just like, okay, I can't do 6 more years of this. I
Mm,
can't. It was just that. It was like, I can't. I cannot possibly like and I barely made it 6 years, you know? It mentally it was tough. You mean leaving and not knowing when you're coming back and all of the other things that military service entail. Not just about whether or not it supports your personal ethos, but it's also like, you know, when I came back from deployment, the only person that I related to was a family member who had previously been incarcerated
Mm.
because it was the only other person that understood, when you're deployed or when you're in jail, you don't exist.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? You don't, nothing around you stops. And then when you come back,
Mm.
you're thrust into this environment that didn't wait for you. And it is one of the hardest things. When I came back, I've always been like the music person in my family. And when I got back, me, my wife, and our best friend were driving in a car, and I was the person that is told them about new music. You know what I mean? And for the most part, when I got back to the shores and got off the ship, and you see all the flowers, and we're in our dress whites and everything. Everything was fine. Then we got in the car when we started driving. They played a song, and they knew the song, and they were singing word for word, right? I had never heard it. And I had a panic attack in the back seat because it just and I never understood why, but it was because you feel like you're not here anymore. You're not in these people's lives. And that was just that was one of the moments where it solidified. Like I can't. Some people can. I can't do 20 years and 7 deployments and not knowing if it'll be extended, having to be in harm's way. It was just too much for me.
Wow. The idea of that song in that moment being so visceral
Yes.
as a metaphor for the
Yes.
distance that you felt with your loved ones. Yeah, that's such a powerful story. And it makes sense why that was kind of the boundary that comes up. And for many of us, when we hit those types of boundaries, it is our body that reacts.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And, having the presence of mind to listen to that moment is super important. Um, you know, so you make the decision and you then are now thrust back into the life that people continued while you were away. And I know you had alluded to the fact that when you came out of the military, you had done all this amazing journalism work, but then struggled to kind of maybe find your place in journalism coming back. What were the parts of your kind of identity that was tested
Oh,
during
no,
that particular
everything, everything. It
moment?
was
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I came back and there were stints where I was homeless, I was sleeping in my car even
Mm.
after. It was one of the hardest things because it wasn't like when I was homeless when I was a kid. You know
Mm.
what I mean? When you're homeless as a kid and you're trying to figure things out, you ask God, why is this happening to me? When you're an adult, you ask God, why did you do this to I mean, how did I do this to myself? You know what I mean? And it was something that I had to wrestle with. And it was extremely painful because there was no one to blame. You know what I mean? There was no plan, but I had never flocked to academia, and a lot of veterans, use their GI Bill to go to school to get paid. And I didn't have all of that stuff set up. And so even on the road to doing some college classes and stuff, as I kind of got my life back together, it still took time. And you don't necessarily struggle with different parts of yourself. If anything, you're really starting to learn who you are. You know what I mean? And ask yourself, and that's what it was. I didn't know that that was the blank slate at which I had to paint the canvas. Up until then, life was painted for me. I didn't have an opportunity to decide anything. It was always reactive. It was always survival. But this last decade, out of a 36-year-old guy's journey, has been about what I decided to do. And as a
Mm.
result, my life looks unlike anything it's ever looked like because of it.
Right, right. Yeah, there's a lot in that of how much as an adult we place the blame first on ourselves, even though there are systems and, you know, just timing and so many other things at play. I think a lot of us struggle with the blame that we just put at our own feet. So I think what you said there is really something I know a lot of people will relate with. What did the work look like for you of learning who you were, but also healing the parts of yourself that, really struggled in this particular moment?
Well, I think it was extremely dark. I've survived suicide attempts. I've
Mm,
understood what the the phone not ringing looks like.
hmm,
Came back, ballooned up to 315 pounds, and I've dropped 110, you know what I mean, and figuring out. But it was really understanding that it was the first time I decided to put myself first. And so I look at society, I look at all of these things, and I was like, there's no coincidence that I've gone through things before other people. You know what I mean? And so when I went through, this dark journey, I had to learn what loving myself and who I was. You know what I mean? Before even loving myself, I had to learn who I was, and then I had to learn how to love who I was. But then after that, I look at a world that shut down in 2020. And when people had to decide who they are, and it was only them and themselves to decide that and to continue on that journey, then I think about losing all of the weight that I had to lose. And when I started that journey, I was doing 2-a-days and Planet Fitness and just working out. And every time I would post my videos or something like that, I would respond first under my post and say, hey, keep going. You know what I mean? And, a lot of people early on laughed at me. But then what I realized is as time went on, it wasn't about what everybody else thought of me. And so, I'm thankful that I went through what I did, because I don't know if I'd be here if I went through that in 2020. That's why I'm so
mm,
sympathetic and empathetic to like what the last, 5 and 6 years really has done to people. It's a new world that has continuously thrown curveballs and things that we've never had to deal with before. And so for me, what that looked like was getting back to the basics, not of my life, but just of life, period. What do you decide to do? Not what can't you do? But what do you decide to do when you wake up in the morning and you just want to be okay? And so that the quitting Sherpa part too. You know what I mean? I just started trying to find my own way. And if it didn't fit, I kept moving. You know what I mean? And I understood the joke that is the gap in employment. I was like, it's a farce. You know what I mean? So I never played into that. I knew like, hey, listen, I'll figure this thing out. But I won't be somewhere where I'm not valued. I won't be somewhere where I'm uncomfortable, which ultimately led me to working overnights at Amazon because I could just cut my brain off. I can move, but I love that it didn't require any thought because when I thought about pain. And you don't want to always think about pain. And so, I was thankful that that kind of reminded me of just duty and movement like I was in the military. It didn't require any thought. I didn't need it to require any thought, but I'm going to keep going. You know what I mean? And then when, Dion Chicago Dream happened and everything, I left Amazon, but it's always, about that moment where I just decided I care about me. And
mm.
since then, it's allowed me to care about other people and love other people because I really know that when I looked in the mirror, I accepted who I was.
Wow. Well, one, grateful that you were able to find the resources and the peace that you need to survive through what, sounds like a very difficult and dark time as you said. So thank you for sharing that. I just reading a lot about the transition back to civilian life for many people coming out of the military and experiences of homelessness, of mental health challenges is just all too common. So again, appreciate your vulnerability there. I think you also alluded to the fact though that a lot of this was just pouring into yourself in a way that felt like getting small wins. Someone on a prior episode, Alexandra, she talked about as she was going through a very difficult time herself, focused on walking because she was like, I can't run, I can't lift weights. Like, I'm already dealing with so much. I have to just get back to the basics. So I think your story also connects with that experience and also gives everyone, I hope, permission who's listening to say you don't have to start doing Ironman
No, absolutely.
to heal and to
At
work
all.
on yourself, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say it's really just about, understanding that you want to be better. And
Mhm.
when you want to be better, you want to look better, you want to feel better, you want to move better, you want to decide better, you want to love better, you want all that's it. That's all. And the physical part is just one part of it. But you just want to try. And once you move, you'll feel better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you alluded to 2020 and of course that was also a very challenging time in a different way. The pandemic, murder of George Floyd happening, and I know that that was a very clear catalyst moment for you. What did that moment mean to you as far as understanding what was happening to your community in Chicago with the pandemic, but also the kind of racial reckoning and conversations that were happening around that time?
Being a Black American sometimes feels unbearable, you know? And that time taught me because I've seen Black men die my whole life. In fact, I'm surprised when Black men live long. And to see it reduced down to an innocent man being executed, it was a catalyst for what ultimately kind of became this next era of what being a Black American is. That year and that moment was one of the most painful moments as an adult, and I think that what I appreciate is that I'm proud of the man that I've become since that moment. You know what I mean? I think before that moment, I thought I was still a kid. What I see now is like there's a moment when it comes to leadership and stewardship where you have to decide, and I think that was a moment where a lot of people decided. And everyone does not have to lead. Everyone does not have to fight. Everyone does not have to commit. But there are some of us who did. And I'm happy at those of us who did and those of us who continue to still do it.
Right. Well, to that point, I mean, the moment you had, and you've described this before with a friend, around that 2020 summer, and your friend asks you, what are you going to do? Right. And that's kind of what the challenge that you were just putting forth to all of us. And you said, I'm going to feed 100 people.
We've got to feed 100 people.
You know, it sounds like that was pretty spontaneous. Just you
Absolutely.
were like, I'm gonna feed
100%.
100 people. Were there any
Absolutely.
seeds though that like even before this time that you feel now that you look back in retrospect, you kind of see why that became your direction?
You know what? I think I'll let history decide that because I think
Mm,
sometimes when people are presented with information without bias, they can see the threads. And, a lot of people around me, my family, my community, my teams, they experience this different than I do. I wish I could say, man, yeah, like it was these exact seeds. But it all just seems so spontaneous and I feel so lucky. And if I would have said, "Hey, I'm going to donate 100 pairs of shoes," would my life have ended up like this? You know what I mean? And so, I don't know why I said it. Of course there's a history of being close to a lot of different food giveaways in my neighborhood and being raised in church and blah blah blah, but I don't know. I don't know. And what I appreciate about it is just not knowing, but being so damn lucky that I said it. I'm so happy that I decided that and that has led to all of this. It's really humbling.
right. Wow. No, for sure. So you did feed 100 people.
Mhm.
So you followed through, which again, I think is a testament to you. A lot of us say those things spontaneously, but don't follow through. And you did a GoFundMe and fed people for Juneteenth that year. That's now Dion's Chicago Dream, which has distributed, I think I saw over 650,000 pounds of
Oh, no,
produce.
7.8 million pounds.
7.8 million pounds. Oh
Yeah.
Lord. Well, I missed the zero, y'all. I missed the zero. Okay. So that's amazing. Again, testament to just how much incredible work that you've been doing. What convictions of how to serve people or around philanthropy ultimately shaped your vision for what Dion Chicago Dream has become?
I think it was a combination of two things. The first thing is being that young kid with his single mom and three older brothers standing in those lines and experiencing the reality of what it meant to be fed but not adequately. And then the second one was Steve Jobs. Before I started this, we all knew of Steve Jobs, but you weren't taught a lot about, the ethos of historical figures. So you only had their actions to represent what they believed in. But I stumbled across a video where he really talked about the end user experience. And it stuck with me. I said, well, if the philanthropy really focused on the end user experience and worked our way backward, a lot of these programs and direct services would look and feel different. And they would evolve and they would be better. And that's the thing that is no nonsense for me. It's one thing to say we've provided 7.8 million pounds of fresh produce. It's another thing to say all 7.8 million pounds we've purchased. It was all brand new. It's another thing to say that all 7.8 million pounds were delivered to doorsteps and people didn't have to wage the weather or stand in 3-hour lines at 8 in the morning with their cart, hoping no one stole their spot, only to go into a place where they receive suboptimal quality. I think the no nonsense for us is we've never recorded a single volunteer hour and we've paid everyone for their time. All of those things are the things that have shaped what ultimately became Dion Chicago Dream, but more importantly, my life's work. You know what I mean? When we think about Black person's entry point into philanthropy, it's through volunteerism. They can't retire. They don't have a 401k. But when we look at our white counterparts on the north side of Chicago, they enter in through a degree program at DePaul University or Loyola University. And then they get a job and then they get benefits and they have a 401k and then they retire. And so when I think about, what shaped it, it's all of the things wrong that I refuse to ignore. If we know the quality of food is bad, we change it. If we know that people deserve access, we give it. If we know they deserve consistency, we meet them there. If we know that there needs to be more jobs, we create them. We know that if farmers need to be paid, we pay them. It's not hard. And if, Dion Chicago Dream goes on for another 50 years, I hope we evolve 90 more times so that we can continue to meet people where they are. And if we don't survive 50 more years and we survive another one, then I'll just start up another one and I'll come up with another name and we'll keep doing this thing over and over again.
Well, you have already evolved with
Yes,
the launch of Cosmic Crate
absolutely.
as an
Absolutely.
extension. So you're already pivoting
Yes.
beyond that. If you don't mind actually sharing with folks, so Dion Chicago Dream focuses on providing fresh meals and addressing the nutritional challenges for families, particularly in the Chicago area. But Cosmic Crate has really taken advantage. And in some ways, I think the learnings you had from working at Amazon warehouse, but now running this kind of on the ground logistical engine behind Dion Chicago Dream and turning that into a tech company. What was kind of your thought of pushing into technology as part of your mission? How does that connect with the mission?
Well, I mean, it's the food system. When we think about the food system, it's dark and it's disconnected. And so when we think about the technology behind connecting all of the parts of our food system, we need something that can stabilize how we communicate throughout the food system. How do we track and make sure that we document the touch points, the biweekly touch points, so we can know qualitatively how our recipients are doing? How do we create routes so that we can then do those routes throughout our communities? And Cosmic Crate ended up being that substitution for all of the tech that all of these small and medium businesses are using just so they can know what's going on. And so right now, Cosmic Crate is not only completely anchoring all of the more than 5,300 deliveries, more than 325,000 pounds of produce, and all of the touch points with our recipients, but through the early users, we're also in 3 states already. We're in Illinois, we're also in Florida, and we're also in Maryland. And so that's the beautiful thing. It's like understanding you have the stretch goal of being better, but what's the sky goal? And the sky goal is having something that can anchor the food system, anchor USDA, anchor the knowledge base so that all of these organizations have the capacity and have the infrastructure if they want to grow. But if they want to stay the same, they can, and they can just be the best version of themselves as possible.
Yeah. Well, it is also really scaling up the impact, right? In
Absolutely.
terms of not just how many meals you can directly deliver, but empowering other organizations and even small businesses for profit who are, maybe also in food logistics as well. You said before that food security is not charity.
Yes.
It's infrastructure, which
Yes.
again, you're building now this infrastructure company that's really helping with that. But that seems like a really different philosophy than kind of a lot of the ways that people approach nonprofits today. What kind of education did you have to deliver to donors and other parts of your ecosystem to have them buy into your approach and vision?
Some of the best business models are quite simple, and you can multiply out or divide down. Profit is not a business model, it's a tax status. Up until I believe 2015 or 16, the NFL was a nonprofit. Rolex is a nonprofit, under a trust. You know what I mean? When we understand the business dynamics of it, we can understand that nonprofit does not mean not making a profit. You just cannot personally enrich yourself. And
Mm.
so all of this education is for all of us, not just the donor. How dare I educate the donor more than the people that we're serving? You know what I mean? And they should also see through what we're providing them the difference. They should see the difference. And so as a result, it's like it's education for all of us. And for me, this is the first time in my life I've been an eternal student. I just love learning and applying because if something ain't right, we got to fix it. And so it's just through that humility of just wanting to be the best that we continue to tweak and evolve and advance everything that we're doing, but also understanding that infrastructure is necessary just for the business and the org and the team to be solidified in whatever they're providing. They have to know that what they're doing, they have to know what it takes to do it. They have to know who they need to do all of that. And we just try to share it out in a way where everybody gets the same blessing.
Yeah, I love what you said about, nonprofit being a tax status, not a
Yeah.
business model. I think to that point, oftentimes there is that trade off. Maybe, people are in corporate careers or in other careers. They want to do work that's purpose led, but they feel like the nonprofit path, always comes with a huge trade off of, maybe finances or other things like that. How do you think about this path of going into a nonprofit for a career or building your own nonprofit, especially vis-a-vis what people may think are the trade-offs they might have to make to do that?
Well, I think if you're still making trade-offs, then I think you're not where you want to be in life. And that's a personal problem.
Mm.
At some point, you have to stop doing the trade-offs. I think that everyone at their best can be their best in the place that is the place for them, around the people that are for them, that can allow them to do the best work. I didn't trade off anything. I'm one of the luckiest people in the world. And I have the time of my life, not only with my team, but with our community, with what we've done, with how I share out. I'm lucky. I know what starving is. I know what sleeping in a car is. How dare I think that the trade-off is making someone uncomfortable who donated $500 and they don't want to be told, hell no, I've starved. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. My mom has sacrificed everything for her son. There's mothers and fathers and out there who have sacrificed everything for their kids. That's a trade-off. We have to stop comparing life and death situations with a trade-off that doesn't really mean anything. This is real life now. You know what I mean? If we look back at history and see, Malcolm X or Dr. King, not leading a march because they don't like the coffee company that supplied the coffee. Like, no, like, of course that may be a thing, but more importantly, it's like, no, they knew, and so many leaders before us knew that the real trade-offs is what happens when like life is impacted. But for nonprofit, it's just another sector. You know what I mean? It's you decide if you want, because this is a people focused sector. So if you love people and you want the best for people and you want to be a part of that social safety net, then I think this is the sector for you. But if you don't give a damn or you don't want to be great at it, then I don't want you in this sector, because now it's just transactional. And it's not about the people anymore. So many entrepreneurs lean on execution and not intent. And so many social entrepreneurs lean on intent and not execution. And I think we just have to make sure we balance it out the right way so that everybody's doing their part. You don't have to like social safety nets, but you can understand the importance of it.
Yeah, true T right there. Intent and execution, and the
Exactly.
two have to come together. And I really appreciate what you said about, clarity is the antidote to optimization, right? So many people, we spend so much time optimizing this and that. I'll take 10% of that, 30% of this, 60% of that. And it's like actually clarity means 100%. And that is really something for all of us to strive to have in ourselves. So I love that. As we wrap here, there's also some exciting news that you've had, that Dion's Chicago Dream is now featured in Obama's presidential center.
Well, I am. My journey.
Or
I am.
your
Yeah.
journey. Yes.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
So as of May of this year, Dion Dawson, yourself, you are featured in the Obama Presidential Center Imagine Your Impact interactive exhibit.
Yeah.
That's absolutely incredible. So
Insane.
Congratulations on that.
Appreciate it.
I guess looking over all of the impact and the accolades that you've, had through this journey now, what kind of moment or recognition stands out in your mind as far as like really making this worth it?
My mom beat kidney cancer.
Wow.
That's all I care about. All of this, I appreciate this. But I can wake up and just still be as excited as I was day one. That's it. Other than that, from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep, every single moment, every single conversation, every person, every, failure, every success, all of it. I'm way too lucky and blessed and honored and happy and enthusiastic. I remember when we walked into the room and the doctor told me and my brothers that my mom had cancer, and it completely changed everything that I thought was important. And so I'm honored that there can be accolades, and I don't really even know what that really means to be in this presidential center or to be a part of it. But I do know that I'm extremely thankful that I showed people what was possible. Like this wasn't something that I thought I would do as a kid. This wasn't something that I had a lot of seed money to start. We started with nothing. And every win matters, because there have been days when, I get 6 emails of grants we didn't get, and then I'll get one where, it just saved the day. You know what I mean? I have moments where I feel down and my mom will call me and tell me she loves me. I'll have team members who send in their videos for our content, for our social media, and, I'll just kind of look at the joy that they have on their faces. And so, there's nothing about this that will ever trump my mom still being here. Any accolade, I just, always say is because I get to have the dopest team alive, the dopest community, and the dopest support system, and everybody who just understood, like, I represented what it looks like when, like, the village pours in and everybody just puts their little bit together for me to go. And so I went, and now I returned, and now I have to make sure that someone else gets a chance to go.
Well, as you said, grateful, of course, your mom is still with you and your family. Those moments are so clarifying,
Absolutely.
And so I hear you that there's the nice kind of awards and everything, but ultimately it is about kind of, family and what really matters. To that end, I'm sure there are people who are listening to your story incredibly inspired at this point in the conversation. You've shared so many gems, but, what would you say to the person who's listening and is maybe struggling with transitioning to civilian life or experiencing a setback in their life? What kind of do you wish someone had shared with you at that point?
I would just tell them it's okay to feel bad. It's not okay to feel bad all the time. And understanding that there's examples of people who have had it better, and there are examples of people who had it worse. I just would want them to understand that, both things exist, and they're on that spectrum, and they are a product of their worst days and their best days. But they can get through it, and we are not our darkest moments. You know what I mean? They will happen. We will feel them, but you will never know what a good day feels like until you've had to have a bad day. So just be thankful for them both.
Wow, that's beautiful. Well, our final question of the show, since this is all about the courage to live your truth, what would you say to the haters, the people who didn't think it was possible to run a nonprofit the way that you do without volunteers, without donated food, or who have judged you?
You thought you could stop me. Watch me do it again.
Period.
Silly you.
Right.
Time
Like, that's so
wasted.
cute.
What are you doing? You failure. Jesus. You thought you could stop me. I'm a lunatic. I don't know what you thought. Your hate will never outweigh my love. Stop it. Give it up. Try something else.
Love it. But you put them in their place. Like, they're
Yeah.
done right now. They're on the floor. They're
Like,
crying.
what are they doing? Fetal position. Stop it. They're not that important. Come on.
My goodness. Well, Dion, thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining us on this show for this conversation.
Appreciate it.
I think there is just so many areas where you've shown your heart, and you show that through your work as well. And so definitely for folks listening, and if this has touched your heart as well, please support Dion's Chicago Dream. And we'll include information in the show notes of how you can support this amazing organization.
Definitely. I appreciate
you.
it. Thank you so much. I had a blast.
There were moments in this conversation that still haven't left me. If something stayed with you too, don't rush past it. That usually means you're on the brink of a bold decision to grow and reinvent your life. Please subscribe to Unpopular Decisions wherever you get your podcasts for more real conversations that help you make sense of choosing yourself, even when it feels like disappointing others. Thank you for listening, and I'm glad you're here.